Hey guys, Caleb here. Today we're doing another budget-friendly LED light. This one is a tube style $50 bicolor light that has a built-in battery. Actually, as I look at this looks like a tiny, dorky little lightsaber. But this thing is really impressive. So let me turn it off because it's very, very bright. And I'll set it here on our nifty little nifty difty. This really handy light stand setup that we'll talk about here in a little bit. So what's the deal with this light? Well, before we get into it, I want to mention a previous video I did on some tiny tube LED lights similar to this that were 20 bucks a pop, bicolor, and had a built-in battery that lasted something like 5 or 6 hours at full output. I'm actually using both of those lights right now in my background as little accent lights. So they're killer little lights. If you haven't seen that video already, definitely check it out. This guy is essentially those on steroids. So what we have here is a tube style, very similar to the Westcott Ice Light, except significantly less expensive. And it has a handle with a couple buttons on it. It is a bicolor light. And if you pick one of these up on Amazon, which there will be a link in the description, you'll get the light itself, a little bag, which is pretty sweet. And it also comes with a remote, which I have lost on my unit. So I can't really show that to you guys, unfortunately. But that's pretty phenomenal because you can put this just about anywhere and have a little remote to control the output. And last but not least, there's a USB cable for charging. So now let's talk about the light itself. The first thing you'll notice when you pick one of these up is the build quality is really solid. It's a very durable plastic and it is really lightweight. There's a little more weight here at the bottom by the handle because of the built-in battery, but you could easily take 1 or 2 strips of gaff tape and tape this anywhere, which means for, I don't know, $100, $200, you could get a whole bunch of these things and put them all around your set and do all kinds of amazing things with them. So if we look at the light itself, we have this white upper section here, this 2/3 with the LED strips themselves, and that is covered by a diffusion panel, which gives us a really nice soft light. I'll go ahead and fire it up here, and I will turn down the brightness. So that's the dimness turned all the way down. And you'll notice it's a very nice even light, which is really well done on their part. And by the way, the name of this is really weird. It's like AMZ Deal LED light. So I'll have more information on the description so you guys can find it more easily. So that's the light section up here at the top. On the bottom little black area here, the handle, you'll notice on the side there is a USB input for charging the light. You can charge it while in use, and we'll talk about battery life here in a little bit. And then on the back there are 3 buttons. The very top button lets you switch between 2 modes, dimming and color. So right now I am in dimming mode, so I can dim it with the up and down arrows or brighten it up to max output, which is very bright. I'll hit that mode button again, and now we can change the color. And this light can give you color temperatures of 3000 to 6000 Kelvin, which is a really nice range. So there's a, kind of a cooler color. I can just bump this up to kind of match my 120D somewhere in there. And then we'll go all the way to a very warm light. So lots of flexibility there, bicolor, dimmable. It's not smoothly dimmable, but it'll let you easily change the output. And then the last thing to note on this light is the 1/4 at the bottom of the fixture. So you can easily mount this to a light stand like you saw at the beginning of this video, any kind of other gripping, it's gonna be really easy. But since this is such a lightweight light, it's very easy just to tape somewhere or use clamps or something like that. A setup I've been loving is this stand I have over here. Let me go ahead and raise it up. I'll link to this stand in the description. I really haven't talked about it much, but it is by far my favorite light stand. It's air cushioned, it goes up really high, and it has these removable spigots, they're called. So you can do that. I've got a 1/4 here, I can flip it around. Now I have 3/8, and if that wasn't enough, you can side mount this spigot. So when you have a fixture like this light here, I'll go ahead and thread the spigot or stud at the very bottom, and I'll go ahead and mount this in a sideways configuration, snug it up. I'll turn up the brightness here, and now I have kind of a side light here. I can boom it up. We'll move it over here so you can see what's going on. So you can shoot the light off to the side and rotate it, do all kinds of amazing things with this stand and this light. I think this combination is awesome. So I'll link to this stand in the description. It's around $35, I think. I've got several and absolutely love them. So back to the light, we've got that 1/4-20 giving us a ton of different mounting points. And finally, to turn the light on and off, you simply hold the mode button and you're good to go. So very simple operation. What about color? Is this thing going to cut it for a key light if you're in a pinch, or are we going to have some struggles there? So I tested the light with my Sekonic Spectrometer C700U, and here are my findings. When the light was set to full cool or daylight, I got a reading of 5659 Kelvin, and output wise I got 166 lux at 1 meter away. CRI was sitting at 86, so I'd like to see that a little higher, but again, for practicals and backgrounds, that's totally fine for me. And then on the warm end, I was getting 2896 Kelvin, so close but not quite there for tungsten, and that measured 162 lux at 1 meter with a CRI of 85. If you set the light to the kind of middle color, you're going to get 4430 Kelvin for your color temperature with a brightness of 183 lux at 1 meter. So this is the brightest the light will get. And I was able to get a 89 CRI, which is pretty respectable. For comparison, the Aputure M9 will give you 123 lux at 1 meter with a CRI of 95. So this small light from Aputure is $5 cheaper than this tube LED, isn't quite as bright, and the CRI is definitely higher. The main downside with the Aputure is you don't get that large tube-like soft light. It's much more harsh and won't give you as much light as this cheap tube LED. Another big surprise to me was the battery life on this light. When the light was set to daylight and max output, I was able to get 4 hours and 50 minutes of output out of this thing. So that's pretty impressive to have something this flexible that lasts around 5 hours, and if you're going to be dimming it at all, you'll probably get much longer run times, which is really impressive. So not the most color accurate light out there, but again, for 50 bucks, there's so much you can do with this. And I'm really becoming a fan of lights that have built-in batteries. No more fussing around with finding a battery that's charged, charging those batteries, packing extra batteries. You just bring this thing, you use it, and most of the time, for me at least, I won't be using it at the full output because I think it's an excellent accent light. So that means your battery life is going to be just ridiculous on this thing. And if you are desperate and need to charge it, you can simply get a little USB battery and use some Velcro tape or a bongo tie to tie a battery to this thing and use it while it's charging. So now let's actually put this light to work. I'm gonna turn off my 120D Mark I is what I'm using right now. So there goes our key light, nice and dark. I'll go ahead and fire up the light and we'll switch it to a better color temperature here. My 120D was set fairly low, so this isn't really about output, this test we're looking at right now. It's more about the quality of light. So it's a longer fixture, which means it's going to be softer, but not quite as soft as a light dome, which is what I've been using. So you could definitely get away with this as a key, but what I would probably do is bounce it. So now what I'm going to do is reverse the light and turn it all the way up when it comes to output. So at this point, the light is bouncing off of my light dome, acting as a key. So a setup like this actually looks pretty good. It's not the brightest thing in the world, but if you have a good low light camera, you could easily get something white, use this, bounce it off of the white surface, and get a really nice soft bounce key. If I had 2 of these things, I think that would be more than enough for a setup like this. So that's setup number 1. I'm going to turn my 120D back on, and we're gonna set this up as a side or kicker light. All right, so I have the light behind me and off to one side. You can see it's just giving me this slight kiss or kick on the side of my face. It's very different words for that style of lighting. And I have it set to the warm mode. Some people like this, some people hate it. I'll switch it to daylight so that more closely matches my key lights. It's a little bright, but I've set it to the lowest possible level. So a scenario like this, I might want to add more diffusion in front of the light, but it gives you an idea of what we can do. Now I'm going to boom it over and right behind me for a little bit of a hair light, even though I don't really have that much hair. So now the light is behind me. You can see the stand. I just wanted to leave it in so you can get an idea of where I have the light, and it's just above me. I don't have a lot of hair, so it's kind of hard to see this effect. But if I go like that, you should see it bouncing off of my naked skull. And yeah, definitely a setup you could use. Because this light is so light, again, just tape it to the ceiling and you could skip using a light stand altogether. And finally, I've turned off my background light and I'm going to turn on this tube light and see how well it does with output. That's looking pretty good there, a little bright even. So lots and lots of flexibility with this thing for 50 bucks. So at the end of the day, I'm a huge fan of this thing. Again, small lights, built-in battery. I think that's kind of the way of the future. And really the winner here is the ease of use and the price. You could go out and buy, Quasar Science's version of this, which is bicolor. It has built-in battery power, and it will definitely look better. It's a brighter light. It has better color accuracy, but that thing is ridiculously expensive. So for practicals, I am loving this thing. Throw it on a stand, tape it to something, clamp it to something, and use it very easily as kind of an overhead accent light. Really, really loving this for that. Now, since getting this light, there has been another version released by a different name that is RGB, or at least it has colored modes. So if you're into some color and don't want to deal with gels, check out that light. It's a little more expensive, maybe 20 to 30 bucks more, but definitely something to consider if you want the same style of light, but some color for some interest in the background or something. So at this point, we have a couple different options that are phenomenal for accent lights. We've got those little $20 lights that we talked about in a previous video. We've got this guy when you need a little more punch and something a little larger. All amazing stuff. We're living in a wonderful time to be a filmmaker and to be looking into lighting. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me know if you have any questions. Check the description for information on this and other lights. And as always, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.